Hello and welcome to FTB Sports. Sorry, this is Paxton Road TV in association with FTB Sports. And this was a Paxton Road TV special. Antonio Conte, is he the right man for Spurs? And I can hear the chuckling in the background already, because when I set this show up yesterday, Paxton people, I thought we were actually in with a shout of getting Conte. Although he wasn't my first choice, I will say that. But since then, I've had a sleep. And Tottenham have had a shambles, and whatever is going on at his club needs to be sorted out now. I'm joined today by some special guests in the house: Mike-Hotspur Hustler, Darius3k, Mr. K, Sid Spurs, and Brendan from the Cheese Room podcast. Hello, gentlemen. And what can we say? Another day in the life of being a Spurs fan. Up until a point yesterday, as I said, it's all about this new manager situation. So from my perspective, I've been on record to say that Conte was not my first choice. Ex-Arsenal, ex-Chelsea, 2-year span usually. Obviously, he's a serial winner. But in order for him to win and be successful, he needs to have whatever he needs to have. He hasn't gone anywhere in the recent times and not spent big money, and that's the case. That was not going to be a match made in heaven. However, there was talks. Things are progressing well. Up until yesterday evening, things are progressing well. Just some stuff, some stuff to iron out. It looked like part of the deal was to get this director of football in Fabio Paratisia. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But then, since then, it has gone pear-shaped in terms of the Antonio Conte aspect of it. So this show was going to be about, is he the right man for the job? Now we're just going to say, who is going to get this bloody job? And what's happened with this guy that he's turned around now? And the things that's coming out is that one of them saying, and this is a Tottenham camp saying, oh, we've not quite seen, he's not quite the right man for us, doesn't quite fit. And Conte's coming out and saying, or his representative is saying, he wasn't quite sure about the budget that we've proposed him to spend. Whatever it is, whatever the truth is, it is a mess. And there is some stuff that we need to discuss. So I'll just go around all of you. Start with you, Mike. Just what's your whole thoughts on this whole Antonio Conte saga that's just been developing over the recent hours?
Normally, mate, I've got the patience of a saint, and I'm not Levy. I'm not Levy in. I'm not Levy out. But he is testing my patience. It's just embarrassing, isn't it? When you think about it, it's like a circus, And 1 minute there's talks of Ten Hag, but it goes to Potter, then it goes to Parker. I mean, it's probably easier to say what manager has not been linked to us. Conte probably wasn't the right fit for us. If we're all being honest, he probably wasn't the right fit for us. However, I think every Tottenham fan probably would have, including myself, would have taken him within a heartbeat, just because at the end of the day, he is a winner. And even though he's probably a Mourinho sort of Mark II, if he brings that short-term success to us, we would probably all accept that without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't accept it. But the fact that Conte isn't here, he's out of the question now by everything that's being reported. It seems like that deal's off. So who's next? What manager is there? I mean, Pot, that's a no-go because PSG have turned around and said he ain't going anywhere. And again, if we're all honest with ourselves, he's only been in that job for 6 months. From a reputational perspective, he's got to think to himself, if I just ditched PSG after 6 months, then what other club's going to take me on board going forward if that's how I treat one of the biggest clubs in world football? So you can understand him staying there. I mean, even though I love Spurs, if you, out of respect for the club that's hired you, you'd stick it out, even if it was just for one more season. At least you can say, well, I've given you 15, 16, 17 months, wherever it is. And then you look at the only alternative I can see at the moment is potentially Ten Hag. I know he's had his sort of contract extended by a year, but that might just be for Ajax to gain some sort of compensation if anyone comes in for him. I know I'm probably clutching at some rather big straws here, but the alternative at the moment, I just can't see an alternative. I can see us ending up with Harry Potter. I can see us. Yeah, it just beggars belief. I don't even know what else to say, to be honest. I just hope Levy's got a trick up his sleeve and he has us all.
Yeah, that's my only thinking is.
I just don't know.
Is there a party piece that he's going to pull out? Is there a rabbit that's going to come out of the hat? I just don't know at this moment in time. So I'm going to come to you, Darius. Sorry, guys, I'll come to all of you, but I'll come to Darius next. What do you make of this absolute mess that's going on at the moment?
I think the best word is embarrassing, to be honest. I agree with you guys to an extent about Conte not being the right person or the right fit for Tottenham, but at the end of the day, your title of this video of this discussion is Conte the right man for Tottenham? It still stands. We can still discuss that question and answer that question. Yes, he was the right man for Tottenham, but it seems like we're not the right man for him, or we're not the right set for him, and it's like what we want to achieve, I don't know. And I keep asking this question to so many Spurs fans is what are your expectations from Tottenham? What do you want to see from Tottenham? And if it is just domestic trophies and sort of finishing around that top 4, then yeah, I guess you can kind of say, yeah, well, Conte wasn't going to work out. I don't really see the point. But if an opportunity arrives and you're willing to pay 50 million euros to Jose Mourinho, if an opportunity arrives where somebody who's literally just come off of winning a league title with Inter Milan, their first one in 10 years, might I add, if that opportunity arrives and he's saying, right, I need 7 staff, I want to get paid 2.5 million euros extra, and I need a budget, which is inevitable anyway because the team is shambles, and also you're either going to sell Harry Kane to make that budget or you're going to keep him and sort of work around that and sell other players. We all knew what to expect and what Conte required. So it just seems like a complete and utter waste of time for you to go into these negotiations and discussions knowing exactly what the guy needs and wants. It's not like you haven't seen this in first person either. The guy was at Chelsea in 2016 and 17. So we know exactly what the guy needs and requires to do well. And yet we still seem to reach a hurdle. And it's like, okay, so now we're in a situation where we've wasted a week negotiating or a few days negotiating with Conte. We've effectively ended negotiations with Poch and Ten Hag because of this opportunity that arises with Conte. And now we're sort of left with egg on our face because nobody's here. So I just think it's a shambles. And again, I respect everybody's opinion on their stance on the board and ENIC. And I can wholeheartedly see where these people who have no other stance but leaving ENIC out, I can completely see where they're coming from. And just now, for me personally, this is a straw that breaks the camel's back. It's almost like I didn't really care anyway, because coming from my point of view, I've not seen enough from my team in the 20 years that I've lived, or 21 years that I've lived, for me to sort of care as much, because I've seen one trophy. But at the end of the day, it's just shambolic what they're doing, and they are really embarrassing us to the point where who is going to come in now? And also, if they do come in, they're going to have a poison chalice from day one, because everybody's expectations were Conte, Poch, or Ten Hag. So if it isn't one of those three, it's just going to be ugly for the person coming in.
The one thing I would say, and this was one of the things that I did want to see, and now whether or not this, okay, I'll take a step back. The director of football, sporting director, whatever you want to call it, was part of the deal that I said had to happen if ENIC, Daniel Levy, were going to at least appease some of these, some of us fans, to kind of at least say, right, we're going to make some changes, because fundamentally the changes after Jose needed to be such that we had a gap between Daniel Levy and the manager. The director of football was going to be that. Fabio Paratici, I think is how you pronounce his name. Apologies if I've got that wrong.
Paratici, I think it is.
Paratici, okay. Yeah. Is supposedly a done deal. But we've heard this before. I've not seen him come out holding a Spurs shirt. So until that happens, it's not a done deal. Brendan, I'm going to come to you next. What's your thoughts on this whole saga that's developing at the moment?
Yeah, just echoing you guys, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? We kind of, the Conte thing came out of nowhere. And I'll be honest, I was on board. He's a recent winner. And yeah, his sort of style is quite similar to Jose. You said Jose Mark II. But Jose is a spent force. Conte is a current force. Conte has won 5 leagues in the last 7 years in the top flight. He's a proven winner, an up-to-date winner. But also echoing what Darius said, like, who's going to come in now? Who's going to, knowing that they were, 4th, 5th choice? It's a bit of a mess. And we kind of hope that he's going to pull something out of the bag. But what's left to pull out? Will Ten Hag take the gig? It's all over the shop.
Brendan, just to let you know, your internet connection is a little bit sketchy at the moment. Just to warn you, you are coming through. We can hear you by sound, but picture-wise, it's not great at the moment. Cool, we'll have some open discussions in a minute. Sid, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts, I think it's been a farce from day dot. 48, 49 days now into it, and we still haven't got a clue. I still believe Conte was a smoke screen just to get every season ticket holder to renew, because the moment Thursday season ticket renewals ended, Friday morning, Conte's deal's not going to get done. I agree with what the other boys were saying. If you on the last video, I did say that Conte, I wasn't 100% with Conte because of his Chelsea connections and whatever, but he is a serial winner. And short term, I think he would have done the trick. Long term, no. The issue is, if you're sitting down with a manager to discuss him being your potential next manager, and you want him, you have to go guns blazing. You have to give him what he wants. If he wanted, like Darius said, the extra 3.5 million and 7 backroom staff, 8 backroom staff, give him 9 backroom staff. If he's going to do the job, if he's going to make the fans happy and we're going to play football and win a cup or whatever, then do it. But then don't go guns blazing and then at the last minute turn around and say, "Oh, my left hand."
It doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make. Why bother talking to him if you have no intention of employing him? The
thing what's come out is they've said was that he's turned around and said he doesn't know if the funds are going to be there to buy players that he requires, because we all know that. But that should have been the opening statement. How much money have you got so I can spend? Knowing that I spend money wherever I go, what have I got to spend? That should be the
partly disagree with that, only because I think Conte saw that 17 million wage and thought, I'll have some of that. Because that's almost double. That's almost double what he was earning at Inter.
Fine,
but I do agree with you about
what I would say to that. What if he's on 17 mil? His reputation. He's not going to come into a club and be paid 17 million just so he can get sacked.
That's why he hasn't taken the job.
Right. So he needed to have assurances. So whether it's 15 million, 17 million, 20, that's irrelevant. It's how much money have I got to make you successful? One of the things I've heard is he wanted to come in and win things now. If he wants to win things now, he's not going to win that with the players that we've got. It would have meant an overhaul, spending money, spending big money. So therefore, if I'm going into negotiations and I know that, okay, Mr. Levy, right, I want X amount of money per year. Yeah, you've got that. I want to have control over who comes in. Yeah, we'll give you that. I also need to spend this amount of money, because if you don't, I can't win this year. That's where the negotiation should have been. You know what? We've only got some youngsters here. We've got a few players coming back off loan. That should have been on day one, not day whatever it is now. This is my point. This negotiations, as Sid has maybe said, has now seemed to be connected with regards to people's season tickets. I want to come to Mr. K first, and then we can have a bit of an open dialogue on this whole saga. But Mr. K, I know you're very much an ENIC out. Has this kind of just emphasised your point with regards to ENIC?
Thanks, guys, for having me on here. I have listened to all of you guys, and you know what? You guys have made some incredible points. The only thing that I have is that this is not new. The whole debacle that's happened over the last 12 months has been a domino effect. You can see it happening. We had this love affair with Nagelsmann, and that was going on for the whole season. And what happened? We acted too late, way too late. He then got interested in Bayern. But 1 week earlier, and we would have got him. No word of lie. 1 week earlier, we would have got Nagelsmann. And that was the whole plan that Levy had from up his sleeve in the first place. Okay? But he messed that up. So what happens? Panic stations happen. Don't worry, we're a big club. We can get the best managers in the world. Then what happens? Before our very eyes, we see something that we have not seen in our whole lifetime, which is all the top managers in Europe all changing seats. Have you seen it before, any of you guys? No?
It's a very good point. It's a very, very good point.
This happened once in your lifetime. It's happened during COVID, and it's happened right now. And you're probably rubbing your hands thinking, oh my days, look at all these lovely managers. Let's pick one. Let's just pick one. And guess what they all did? For one reason or another, we thought we're too big for you. Like, for example, with Ten Hag, we went up to Ten Hag, we spoke to Ten Hag, and we turned around to him and said, no, we're not interested in your negotiation. Apparently, Spurs pulled out of that negotiation. And the day after they pulled out, Ajax then turned around and said, okay, we're going to extend your contract.
Yeah.
right?
You couldn't make it up, could you?
You can't.
It's
But-
genuinely disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
The same thing happened with Poch, right? If the guy's going to be interested, you put an offer on the table straight away. You conclude it within 24 hours. Look at Real Madrid, one of the biggest jobs on the planet, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And those guys, within 48 hours, they had him signed, sealed, and delivered.
Absolutely.
48 hours is what the time they had from Ancelotti's team being made aware that this position might be available for him, to the point where they concluded and signed. 48 hours.
And
That's
you
what
told
you
no
got
one.
to do. And we only heard about it when the discussions were already nearly finished.
Exactly.
We just had to tie something up. So the point is this.
Do you think, Mr. K, do you think that Spurs were just literally taking a fly with this Conte thing? Because I don't believe he was on the list prior to this. Because
I think what happened
in the just to say, in the last day of the season program, Levy was saying the style of football that he wants to see, the type of manager he wants to see, the youngsters being brought through. All of this doesn't tend to lean towards Antonio Conte. But Antonio Conte at that point was still in the job. He then leaves. We all know he's a serial winner. I've said to you before, he's Jose Mourinho on crack. He's literally that. Do you know what I mean? He is so volatile, but if he gets what he wants, he can deliver. It's going to be very difficult to get what he wants.
To answer that is basically Sid's point. See, what it is, inside the Levy camp right, we've got a bit of a mess because they missed the boat with Nagelsmann. Now it's a case of, what do you do? Well, relax, don't worry, we can still handle it. Oh, look, there's loads of managers everywhere. We'll get one. Now, the situation with Conte is very, very simple. I think Sid hit it on the nail where he turned around and said, well, who are the fan base that would like to see someone like Conte and what he can bring next season? Well, it would be a vast bulk of them would be season ticket holders. So by bringing his name out, I think that was a serious intent by Levy in his mind, in his deluded mind, to think that he can entertain and he can do to Conte what he's been doing everywhere else. The problem is that Conte's record, I mean, I've seen videos of him picking people up and chucking them across tables. Absolutely. And this is his own staff. You know, what he's done to players behind the scenes, I dread to think. I think as far as, I mean, the reason why he complained about the chairman not being hands-on is because Conte wants to get his hands on. So here's the chairman that's clearly going to be hands-on and is too afraid to continue.
You're actually Mr. K, you actually make that very good point. The reason why he left Inter was because of was it Leonardo, the director of football?
Yeah.
No, Leonardo's PSG.
PSG.
Sorry, not Leonardo. Whoever it was.
I can't remember who there.
He apparently wasn't going to get what he wanted. They wanted to do it a certain direction. He wants to go in a certain direction in terms of players to bring in. So he said, I'm off. And he didn't even bat an eyelid, said, I'm off. Could you imagine having him this is what I'm saying about this whole Conte thing. Was he the right person for the job? That goes back to the original point. Was he the right fit for us? Now, as a winner, 100%. Go on. Sorry.
Sam, to answer that, the second part of that question, right, is you got to look at how Tottenham's infrastructure has been when it comes to employees and wages. So what Conte is basically doing, right, Conte has his own team of experts that he brings in, and they sort everything out for him. He's a winner. There's a reason why you win. You win with the staff that you have, the team that you have. Now, that staff doesn't get paid £2,000, £3,000 a week, or £1,600 if you're Ryan Mason. They get paid a bucket load more, right? They don't get paid, but it's not peanuts. At the same time, it's not like Premier League football players either. But the point is, Levy does not have the infrastructure to pay for 7 staff members, right, who are getting paid that type of wage level. He doesn't have it. He never built it in. He's been skimming money off from the club, right, and paying peanuts to the people that are there. Danny Rose did this a few years ago, and that poor boy got ostracized since then. You look at how much the fan base hates him right now. So anyone who complains against this one little feature, we all know it, out of the top 20 teams in this country, we're ranked number 18th when it comes to paying wages. That's an investment. Sorry. We're ranked number 6th for paying wages. We're ranked number 18th for investment on the field. So I think all of these numbers have a real important significance when it comes to who's going to get the job as a manager, who's not going to get the job as a manager. Because at the end of the day, that pot of money, Levy's not going to pull it out of investments.
I do agree with a lot of your points. And let me just read this comment out here from Monster Ali. It's probably the funniest one I've got here today. Breaking news: Spurs are in talks with Mickey Mouse to be the new manager. The deal will also bring Bugs Bunny and Donald Duck to form a new central defensive partnership. And really and truly,
that's not happening. Minnie Mouse is not included. Minnie Mouse is not included. That's not happening.
She could probably play as a centre of the back three. I'm telling you, better than certain players. 100%, guys.
Goofy over Sissoko.
I'll ask Brendan this because was it the right fit? Would you have accepted Conte with open arms, or was it kind of like we'll have to wait and see what was part of the deal? Because at the moment, I think more and more stuff is going to be like leaked out. But what was your thoughts anyway about it?
I'd have taken him 100%. I'd have welcomed him with open arms. He's a winner. Like I said, a recent winner as well. And of all the available candidates, he's by far the best, you'll hear me. In terms of what happens now, it really all depends on who's still out there that still wants to come, knowing that they won't be first choice, knowing that they're third or fourth or fifth choice. It's just such a messy situation. But Conte, I was speaking with Sandro yesterday here in Portugal, and he wasn't a fan of Conte. He said that managers do kind of need to be the players' friends a little bit as well, and he doesn't see Conte as that kind of person, the sort of man management. But his track record speaks for itself. So I would take Conte. It's looking dead in the water now, but when he became available, of course, 100% I'd take him.
Guys,
you know what? Sorry, you know what it is for
Dan.
me as well, Sam. I've got an issue now as well with this whole Paratici thing. Because don't get me wrong, we need a director of football. But if we and I understand that Paratici, you can't. I tried to do a bit of research on him. There's not a lot to sort of gain from his work at Juve. Obviously, the track record shows he came in, he changed them with Conte. But his specialty seems to be about free transfers and sort of getting the best value for money in that free transfer market. And I understand that sort of fits the narrative and model that Daniel Levy wants to go under. But when you have people like Luis Campos on the market and Ralph Rangnick on the market who fit the ethos and model of Tottenham 100%. So much better, why? And I ask this question now. We've gone through with this Paratici signing now. The Paratici appointment seemed to me hand in hand with Conte. Now one of them's pulled out and one of them's here. It just seems like even more of a mess. It just seems like chaos to me.
What I will say to that then, Darius, is I'm not sure that this Paratici deal will go through. I've not seen it signed. I think it's
done.
100% done.
It seems he's looking for managers, and his current job is looking for managers.
Has it been announced? Has Spurs come out?
Not announced. But
that's not so. Guys, until that happens, I am not saying he is our director of football, because until it comes up on Spurs official, we can have anything happen. We've seen it. This doesn't all points. Exactly.
The wording from Romano, when it came to the DOF, right, was that they were waiting on one or two finer points, and one of them had to do with the manager, the second had to do with money.
Thank you.
Those are the only things that were the final seal. But they said that everything had been agreed in principle, and it was just those two final details that were the final nail in the coffin. Now, the way I look at it is that if the manager, right, will determine what type of, who the DOF is going to work with, and what style of players he's going to try to bring forward. So that's kind of important if the DOF is going to sign on the dotted line.
Exactly.
So I think that's a reasonable status to be in. The financial side, well, that's the money to play with. That's got to be negotiable between Daniel Levy, the DOF, and the new manager that comes in. So that's another stipulation would delay this particular signing. But as you said, Sam, it's not written, it's not signed, he may pull out.
And like I said, he worked with Antonio. Sorry, he worked with Antonio Conte 2011 to 2014 at Juve. Has been at Juve since that point, and has, by all intents and purposes, it seemed like that was a deal kind of together. It was, if you bring him in, he'd want to bring in Conte. That makes sense.
If you actually look at Juve's infrastructure at the moment as well, they don't seem to be. Obviously, I still believe they've made good signings, but their academy doesn't seem to have improved, and this is sort of what Levy's sort of the direction he's trying to go towards. They've made good signings recently with Kulusevski and Chiesa, and then they're spending 100 million on Ronaldo, and it's like, what was Paratici's role when he came to, like, when he was offered the job at Tottenham? Like, what was that sort of the checklist for you to do when you get to, what was your job requirements? That's the question I'm trying to ask, because it just seems like you say, sorry to interrupt you there, Sam, but it seems like Conte and him was a hand-in-hand deal. It almost seemed like one comes with the other. So, and Steve Hitchens still in a job. So I don't know what's going on. I genuinely don't know what's going on.
Darius, if you had Poch instead of Conte with the DOF that's there, it still work. What it is that the DOF has to work with a certain type of manager. Because this particular DOF could be a defensive-minded or attack-minded, or he could be a youth-minded, or he could be like, those people that are 18 to 21-minded. And that's what my point is, that where he focuses his attention and what type of speciality that he has will only come to the front if he's paired up with the right team and the right philosophy of the club.
And that's why I go back to the fact that Campos and Ranić, who are both available on the market, who again, Ranić said, and I think it was Christian Falk from Build who mentioned, was happy or was open to accepting a Tottenham job. And it's like, we're turning our nose up at people who are building empires in football almost. He built that Red Bull network up from almost to scratch. And you go and see what he's done now. And then Campos, literally go and look what Lille have done. There is evidence this season to suggest what Luis Campos has done. He's going apparently to Real Madrid or Arsenal. I'm telling you now, there's a serious issue at Tottenham with the continuity. That's my main issue. It's continuity. There's no sort of continuity or identity. So we're going for Paratici, and then we want to go and sign Nagelsmann, or we're thinking about signing Nagelsmann at the start of the season. I guarantee you, Paratici was not on anybody's mind before Conte left that Inter job, and that's the issue. It's just we're desperate. Levy seems desperate. He seems like he's just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. And I don't really.
Darius, I think you made a good point there, where you turned around and mentioned that this DOF wasn't on anyone's radar. I think if you look back at the beginning of the season, the number one thing that everyone turned around and stated was that if you're going to have Jose there, you need someone like a DOF, like for example Luis Campos,
who's his best mate,
who was available at the time. Now the strange thing is that obviously, come January, he'd signed off somewhere else. So I think Levy is doing his old trick that he's done with Hitchens for so long, which is, okay, if that's your number one, what's your number two pick? And they've gone for a number two pick, right? And so it just so happens is linked up with
Mr. K. Sorry, I just want to come to this boy from the lane. He's one of our regular guests. Welcome, boy from the lane. Thank you for all your input. It's been superb. Just with this one, he's just in from goal. So again, we have to just see if it's definitely genuine. Antonio Conte wanted guarantees that in the event Harry Kane was sold, then the club would at least invest part of the fee generated. The club refused to agree to this demand. Mike, do you think there's any truth into this?
Worrying if true, by the way.
I honestly don't know. There's so much, like, there's so many rumors, so much like reports from various news sources. You just don't know what's true, do you? I mean, if Kane was to be sold, you'd hope the whole of the money would be reinvested into a striker or strikers to replace Kane. Because what's the point in selling Kane and then go and get a 20 million striker who's probably not going to bang you in more than 15 goals a season? It's just, that's
very worrying. That's a very worrying statement if that is true.
If that's true, it is.
I thought in my head that's what you do. You go and get two world-class players with that money, but
100%, 150 mil. You could easily buy two world-class strikers, maybe a bit older, but you'd buy them and replace that with the money you get from Kane, wouldn't you? It's a no-brainer. Or you buy one striker and you go and buy yourself a number 10 who is world-class, who could supply the striker with the service that he needs to bang in the goals. But if that's true, then I just don't know. Nothing surprises me anymore.
I'm sorry if that's shocking you now, but it hasn't shocked me for the last 2 years. We've been seeing bits of this before, and in the last 2 years, I've given up on speculating. I now know for a fact this is how Levy operates. He's always operated this way, and it's sad to see that a lot of people out there are starting to see bits and pieces of the way Levy operates. You would have thought 150 mil they'd come to the players, but I've known for a fact that Levy doesn't do that. He's been skimming that money for years and years and years. Go back to that 16-17 season onwards when we didn't spend anything after about a season and a half. And what happened with the saved money? We were in the Champions League. Where did that money go? No one's questioning it. And all of a sudden, we don't have any money when it's COVID, and we have to borrow money from the government. Look, when you look at the numbers for this thing, it makes you more disgusted every time.
There's no money. I agree. I don't think there's any money. Sid, what happens now? What do you think happens now at this point?
Daniel Levy needs to go into hiding. Literally, he needs to go into hiding, or they've got to now. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think what you said, Sam, before, they've got to pull a rabbit out of a hat, because who is left now for them to go and get? Like we've all said,
Roberto
all the top
Martinez.
managers.
He doesn't need to pull it out of the hat. He needs to pull it out of the hole, mate. It's got to that stage.
Because this Harry Kane situation, right? I heard Conte wanted, the first thing Conte wanted was assurances that Kane is not leaving, not that they're going to sell him. And then also, I've heard on the grapevine, this is coming from Kane's father-in-law, that he's going Chelsea.
No chance.
I can't imagine
That's
that.
what I've heard.
Way.
That's the rumor. But going back to the managers, and I've said this the other day, you know what? Eddie Howe turning down the Chelsea job, Celtic job, I think there's something brewing there as well with him, because he didn't want, everything was signed, sealed, and delivered. Yeah, at Celtic, and now he's turned them down for whatever reason. But going back to what everyone else has been saying, all the top choices we had from day dot, yeah, when the merry-go-round was going around, we had the top choices. Daniel Levy, for whatever reason, has decided, you know what, let's go in there for him just to appease the fans. Then little niggly £2 million wages, which is what Mr. K and everyone is saying. Every season, Maddison, Grealish, any player you name, we've lost the deals for 1 million, 2 million, and Levy's doing the same again. Now, Conte wasn't everyone's ideal choice, fair enough, but instant success, not for me. Maybe it would have taken him a season or two. But now we're back down.
But Sid, he's only there for 2 seasons. That's the point. And that's what he said. He's only there literally for 2 seasons. Now, he's not going to come and say to Daniel Levy, I'm only staying for 2 seasons. But his record shows that. When he goes in that first year, he blitz everything out. He brings in these players and he gets players playing such that he has success usually within his first year, most definitely in his second year.
But Sam, if we think So if you think from a business perspective, though, I understand. So it's clear to me now from what I've gathered that it was the length of this sort of project that Levy wants to go for. He kind of doesn't want to spend all this money straight away. He sort of wants to elongate the spending of money over 5 years as a project. And then eventually you get to the pinnacle, kind of like what Poch did. Conte doesn't have time for that. Conte said, you give me all the money now and I'll win you a trophy. From a business perspective, I talk about risk, and there's not sort of any reward without risk. That's the risk you got to take. You got to spend that money big. Look at Chelsea. I understand Chelsea have the money to do it, but they dropped £200 million on players, and they've gone and got this squad to kind of carry them through this league, and then they've gone and bought the right manager to sort of get them through it. You kind of have to make a big initial payment. And Conte, in my opinion, if we had given him the players, and I keep saying this, I said this in a group chat, there's not many things you need to do in a club necessarily for your luck and fortune to turn around. I give the example of West Ham. West Ham were pretty much dead and gone last season or the season before, and now we're in the Europa League after making a few very good shrewd signings. So I'm saying if you give Conte the right signings and the right players, if you've got Kane and Son up front, and then Højbjerg and then Ndombele, and you bring in the right centre-backs, Conte probably could have gone for a title push. And if we had done that, and we had actually done something crazy like Conte has done with Inter, with Chelsea, Levy would be making more money than if he had said, okay, I'm going to pay a manager $4 million a year. We're going to buy players for $10 million. It's going to take 5 years to build this project up. And then 5 years later, we're nowhere where we are. So I'm just struggling to see from a business perspective how even Conte, if you take the risk, like there's still going to be a risk in this project. There's still going to be a risk with Conte. It's like, I don't really see what's going on here. I'm just confused.
There's always going to be a risk with any manager you bring in, because we've seen that when you think you're going to bring someone like Jose Mourinho in, who's guaranteed success, and it doesn't work out. So obviously there is an infrastructure problem at Spurs. I'm just looking at some of the odds checker from yesterday. Poch was 3-1 favourite. Ten Hag was 7-2. The next one, I think it was 6-1. Roberto Martinez, Graham Potter, and the likes. Brendan, just before, because what I would hope to do is we're going to have another talking points on Tuesday where we can maybe have a bit more of an in-depth discussion about this whole thing about manager, who's going to be next. We've kind of done this before, but now it looks like it's going to be rumbling on for at least another week, if not more. Who would you want out of everybody that's left realistically? Who would you want, Brendan?
If you're ruling out Conte and Poch, Ten Hag for me, Ajax play really good football, and he does have that sort of pressing style of play. He does bring youth players forward. So he kind of did fit that initial Daniel Levy DNA statement at the end of the season. So I know he signed the extension at Ajax, but I think they put that in just to get a bit more money in terms of compensation, knowing that we were sniffing around. So for me, if we can't get Conte or Poch, Ten Hag, and I'd be excited to see what he can do. He did work under Guardiola at Bayern, so he's got that connection there. Ajax fans that I've spoken to love him, say that he's the best manager they've had in over a decade. It's not going to be De Boer Mark II. He is going to come in and do a good job. So for me, it'd be Ten Hag if Conte and Poch are out of it.
Good shout. Loads of comments coming through. Thank you all for watching. I'll just put this one up. The pride of Gothenburg. With these idiots at the helm, we ain't going to get shit. 20 years of a Coca-Cola trophy and 10 years of cheating managers. ENIC out. We can see what the rhetoric is now. Darius brings up a good point. It's the point where Levy Lewis are going to find out they've cost themselves more at this point than they've had just to spend the money in the first place. So again, it's a common theme. It's like, I think when you touched on something earlier, Sid, and it's kind of resonated with me. It's almost like they almost play this game, because I've seen this type of bluster, season tickets out, and then we haven't got it. The same thing happened with the players last summer, although we kind of got a little bit smoke screened in terms of the players that we got. We got a number of players.
That Paulo Dybala was a big one, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It's a con.
It's a con.
What Levy's done is a con. He and like I said, touched upon about the season tickets. Well, the season ticket holders. I'm in an whether to purchase them. When you read between the lines, there is a con, isn't it? He's done that on purpose. No, I think it's quite. Sadly, I think it's quite obvious to see.
Scummy, that's what it is. If he's done that, it's very scummy beyond belief.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Mr. K will probably say it's not a surprise to him. He's seen this all before. What I would say though is surely now, because this is not like it's not all over the media. Surely now the board, in terms of Daniel Levy, Joe Lewis, and whoever else is involved in all this stuff, now knows that they have to, and I mean when I say have to, they have to get this right in terms of the next manager. If they were, let's just say, and I'm going to pray, if they brought in someone like, Ryan Mason, I hope it doesn't happen. But if they did do that, I think they'd rip the stadium down. I think the whole stadium will be brought down to its knees, because they cannot then go from talking about Conte, talking about Poch, talking about Ten Hag, talking about all these managers, and then bringing, we're not sure what we're doing yet. We're bringing right. That's not going to happen. But I can see something in between: a Scott Parker, a Graham Potter, an Eddie Howe, a Roberto Martinez.
You're forgetting one man.
Who?
You're forgetting one man when every club is in a desperate, dire need. Big Sam.
Please don't say it. Please don't say that. How dare you, guys?
You know what? Wouldn't surprise me.
He beat the champions of Europe 5-2. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna mute my mic again now.
Going back to your questions, Sam. Who's left? Let's be realistic here. Who's actually left? Ancelotti's Madrid. Allegri's at Juventus.
Yeah.
Ten Hag is probably going to stick with Ajax.
Yeah.
Conte, well, he's whatever's going on with him.
Nuno Gomez.
No, I don't want him. I don't want him. I don't want him.
Mourinho's obviously at Roma. He'll probably go and win the bloody Serie A next season. You watch.
Yeah.
It's unless we go for I don't know, we raid one of the French clubs like Lille for next season, which that's not going to happen. Why is
I think Gaultier is already. I think Gaultier is going to Nice. I think he's going to Nice, so he's actually taking a step down. I think the Lille manager is going to Nice.
Fonseca, apparently, I read this morning, has been offered to us.
Yeah.
Who has?
Fonseca. Like I said, for me, I don't care anymore. I actually don't care anymore.
There's also
14th of August. Just give me a ring on the 14th of August. Let me know who the manager is. If I like it, I'll watch the Premier League next season. If it's someone I don't like, I don't care. So they've played with my emotions for 49 days now.
If they can get, and I think we'll do this. If you guys are available for Tuesday, I think we should get us 6 together again to do another show on Tuesday. If, let's say, in this time between now and Tuesday, it starts to come out that it's likely to be someone like Ten Hag or Poch, because those are the two favourites at the moment. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get Poch. And I'm not quite sure we're going to get Ten Hag, although
No.
I think on our last show we all said Ten Hag. If somehow that emerges to be what we're or who we're going to get, would that appease the fans? And I'll come around to all of you. I'll start with you, Mike. Would that appease the fans?
Yeah, it would effectively. Yeah, no doubt about it. That would, I think, that would appease the fans. I like him as a manager. I like what he's done with Ajax, etc. The only thing is, any manager that's going to come in now, they're just going to be like, well, we've seen the debacle that you've had. You're going to have to offer me some serious wedge to come in here. And so if managers are being offered, or Conte, was it 17 million, 15, 17 million?
I think it was 15 million with like 2.5 in add-ons or bonuses or whatever.
So if you're saying 17.5 million, argument's sake, any manager now could come in and be like, well, all these top managers have said no for 17. If you want me to come in and do a job, I'll do it for 20 mil. It's just gonna be the Wild West now, isn't it? Every manager's gonna just, if they half-heartedly just going to be like, no, I'll do it, but you're going to have to offer me stupid money now.
Oh my God!
And this Ten Hag, is he actually going to want to come into this firing line of Levy and? It's career suicide, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean,
and this is what Amic Crow's saying. I think those two are literally the only options for the fans not to write, and I completely agree. I can see them taking that stadium down brick by brick, piece by piece, if we don't get someone of that sort of ilk now that we've had all this debacle. Darius, I'll come to you next. What about Zinedine Zidane?
Don't talk to me about me. Like I said, I can do my own show about Zinedine Zidane, so don't talk to me about Zinedine Zidane.
I'd take him if he's going to play for us. I'd take him over
I'd rather him play. That is fact.
He can take him. I'd take him over them.
I just wanted to make one more point, and I would say that for me personally, I'd be happy with Poch or Ten Hag. That's fine. Again, if they come in, there's a lot of players that have to go. Regardless of that, there's still a lot of players that have to go. But if those two specific managers come in, you cannot play Ten Hag's sort of style of football or Poch's style of football with those players that we've got. So that's what I'll say on that. The only point I just want to make basically on Spurs in general and Conte who's this? Tony Pulis. Oh my Lord.
We're laughing stock at the moment. We are.
Sorry, yeah. I just wanted to say, based on the wages that we were offering Conte, it's even worse for Levy now, because if he's willing to offer those stupid wages for Antonio Conte, you can't really say that the money's not there for a manager per se. So it's like, now you've offered that big fat wage to Conte. It's like you can't really go back on your word now. So it's like the money's there in a sense. Obviously, we signed Paratici, we signed Conte's, and the staff would have had to come in, and there would have still been a budget to spend on players as well. So it's clear that the money's there. If you're going to spend less on a manager now, for me, I've got to see some intent. You've got the outgoings. The outgoings is the main thing. Once we get this manager sorted out, like I said, I don't care about who it is now. 14th of August, let me know. I'll see if it's worth my time, and then I'll check out. The expenditures, the outgoings they have to leave now. That's another topic, but get rid of the players now.
Save some of it for Tuesday. Mr. K, I just want to get your final thoughts on this as well.
Well, guys, I think to myself that no matter who Levy brings in, I'm still going to be pissed off at him. There's far too much water under the bridge. I don't think it'll matter anymore. For the fans, yeah. I'm reach across and talk to the fans and say, yeah, listen, you guys might get pleased if Ten Hag comes along. You'll believe that there's another project. But, we had one of the best project people on the planet. And look how we treated him. So who's this number two? Now, Ten Hag, right, yeah, is not as emotional, right, yeah, as Poch was. He is very much more of an analytical sort of person. He's not going to come out with his displays of emotion in any way. So I'm wondering how long before the players decide that, that they need a human touch. They're training too hard, training not hard enough, need a little pat on the back. Well, I think basically that's going to happen to this manager if he comes in. Anyway, my 2 cents is very simple. Levy out.
Thank you for that. Sid, the final thoughts before we go and find out what's going on in this whole saga.
You know what? For me, Poch and Ten Hag, why would they want to come? We didn't want to pay the extra 2-3 million for Conte's whatever he wanted. So now we have to pay these guys extra. They've got a year's extension, so we've got extra money to release them. it's, you know what it's like? For me, it's like, you know when you go to a nightclub and you see two girls and then the best one gets taken by someone else and then you're left with that one over there. It's exactly what's going to happen to Tottenham. Exactly what's going to happen to Tottenham.
You know what,
We're
Sid?
gonna end up-
I'll do you one better, Sid. We're not
Go
even
on.
that.
Wait,
We're
to
the
my
friend
back
who's
end.
sat in the corner with the drink in his hand in the drinks area, waiting for his other friends to finish chatting to the two girls because he ain't got any game. That's who we are, mate.
We're that bird, mate.
We're the
that
one who's sat
bird
in the
that-
corner with our
Guys.
drink in our hand, like, you guys done it? You guys done
No,
it?
we're-
Like,
Come on.
We're that
Come
bird
on,
that
guys,
gets
man.
just-
Come
telling
on.
you.
It's
Telling you.
true. It's true. You know
We're
what?
not-
Why would they want to come to us? Honestly, if I was
no
Ten
one wants to
Hag now-
chat to us. We're the
No,
deadest
no.
of the dead. Like
Absolutely.
we're the ones where I'll give you one more reference about nightclubs. We're the girl, right? If you want a female reference, we're the girl, right? Where you know when you just don't care at this point, you're just drunk as hell. You don't care who it is you want to go back with. You just grab it and you just
Too
leave.
much information,
And you
guys. Too much information. We're too much information at the moment. I think we should maybe move off the
Dude,
club
It's
references.
like doing an tip.
Mate, I need to have fun somehow.
I'll come to Brendan
Oh
last then.
man,
Brendan.
we are a joke of a club.
Just talk to me about what's your thoughts on the who would make things better.
The only thing I can think about now is going clubbing with Sid. But in terms I don't think that Ten Hag appointment won't appease all fans. There are a significant number that are dissatisfied, unhappy, and rightfully so, for a large part of it. So Ten Hag coming in won't appease everyone, but for me personally, I'd welcome the appointment. We just have to get it right. It's been such a mishmash of the last couple of weeks, and it has been embarrassing and it has been a slog. But I'd welcome Ten Hag, but I still think there'll be a large proportion of the fan base that will still be unhappy with Levy. He's got a big summer ahead.
Massive summer. We've got a massive week coming up. Like I said, all this was supposed to be wrapped up before the Euros starts. That's what I was led to believe. And at this moment in time, we're back to square. We're not even back to square one.
It was meant to be wrapped up by the end of the season. Remember when Ali Gold came out and said Spurs are hoping to get it wrapped up before the end of the season, let alone the Euros, mate. So it's even worse.
There's no way this is
people are
getting done
laughing.
before the Euros.
No way.
Simon, thank you. He hasn't stopped laughing. In fact, we have to laugh because, like I said, there'd be literally tears coming down our eyes otherwise. And literally would be tears. Guys, as I said, I think we can. Just a few more comments. Okay, let's just have a look at a couple more comments here. Rudy Garcia is free. Not the most exciting appointment, but could stabilise club and stop us dropping further. Spurs matches will now be shown on Comedy Central. Probably will be. We've outgrown Levy. So there's a lot more to go. As I said, if we can get you guys together back for Tuesday, we can have another chat about things because there will be plenty more to talk about. But for now, let the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cycle continue and let's just enjoy our weekend. The sun's out. Let me just check the sun's still out. Yeah, it's still shining outside. Let's go and enjoy ourselves.
Get the drinks in, guys.
Mike, Darius, Mr. K, Sid, Brendan, thank you all very much. Please come back on Tuesday. We'll do this again. See you guys.
Yeah.